Hi everyone. The concept of customer loyalty is very important. We usually say that it is easier to retain an existing customer rather than acquire a new one. In this data set, we have the data for 5 months from October to February. The business started in the month of October. We had a certain number of customers. So there were 8 customers who purchased from us. We had 6 in November, 4 in December, 3 in the month of January. And then in February, the company did a retargeting campaign and they increased the number of customers from 3 to 7. The first thing we need to find is very simple. We need to find out customer loyalty, which means all the customers who are there in October, how many of them have purchased in every single month post that. For example, if you look at Melanie, Melanie is there in October, November, December, January, as well as February. Clearly, she is a loyal customer. If you look at Seth, not in November, not in December, not in January, but again in February. So Seth would be who we call a return or a recovered customer. Let's start with the customer loyalty first. Now this formula is going to be a little long, but it's not particularly complicated. But yes, there are certain elements of the formula that will have to be written again and again. So we say that equal to filter B5 colon B12. So the idea is that from the list of customers who purchased in the month of October, we want to filter out as per a criteria. And what is the criteria? This is how we'll write it. Equal to VLOOKUP, search for B5 to B12 in C5 to C12, comma 1, comma false. If the customer is available in both October and November, we get the name, otherwise we get an NA. We can use is NA to convert the results into false and true. And we will use not that will reverse all the results. This means that Melanie has purchased in November as well. So she is coming as a true. Seth in the 6th row is not there in the month of November. So he is coming as a false. And once we have done this, we can use a double negative. Once we have done that, our results will get converted into ones and zeros. Once we have done this, we can simply copy this 1, 2, 3, and 4 times. When we do this, the result will look like this. We have 4 ones, that means that Melanie is appearing over and over again, right? Then we have this 00, 00, 11, 11. So what does this signify? It signifies that we essentially want to look at 4 numbers but for 4 different months. So all we have to do now is to change the C to D then the last one becomes F. Think what will happen. 1111 means that Melanie is coming in all the 4 months: November, December, January, and February. For Seth, it's 0001. That means Seth is not there in November, December, January, but he's there in the month of February, like this. So a 0001 means that this is somebody who is there not in the first 3 months, but only in the last month. If you look at Harold, Harold is a 1001. That means yes in November, no in December and January, and then yes in February. Once we've done this, we can simply say, is this entire result equal to double one, double one? Since only double one is signifying a loyal customer. So now we get trues and false. And the final step is very simply use a filter. And in the filter, we will use the series of true and false. Let me check that. So there is a parenthesis missing here. And it tells us Melanie, Darren, and Lycoris are the 3 loyal customers who have purchased in every single month: October, November, December, January, and February. All right. We've done this. Let's come to the return and recovered. This one is a little more difficult, but it initially follows the same logic that we used in the previous one. So what we need to do is simply copy this part where we concatenated the entire result like this. If I show you the result here, it just gives me a series of ones and zeros, correct? From this series of ones and zeros, we want to identify a certain pattern. And what type of pattern are we looking at? So we will have to say that first thing is to use a leg so that I can give this a name. Let's call this calc. And now we will say that let me first try to find a zero in calc starting at the second position like this. Think what will happen. If we are trying to find a zero starting at the second position, we will get some errors because remember, this was 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 and 1 1 1 1. Hence, since there is no zero, it is giving us a value error. Now we can use an if error and replace that with a zero. This means it is telling us the position. So 2 3 2 means what position is the zero starting. So we are getting somewhere. But remember, the zero has to be converted into a number. So we will have to use a value function to convert it into a number. The result looks the same, but since we have to compare it with something else, it has to be converted into a number. Now we will say that if, if this entire value that we have written is greater than 1, which I then want to multiply by right calc 1, which is equal to 1. So I know it's becoming a little tricky, but just think about what we are doing logically. I'm doing an if, then I'm taking the value which is being multiplied the first character from the right. So I want to check if the last result is a 1 or not. That means in the month of February, is it a 1 or not? This will also be multiplied by, let me also put the parentheses properly. Okay, now this will also be multiplied by left, because in calc we also want to check if the first value is a 1, the result is return, otherwise the result is no, like this. Let me quickly go through this and see if there's something that we have left out. All right, so we are doing an if value, we have an if error, find 0, then we have a calc 2, we're checking greater than 0, greater than 1, which is multiplied by right. Okay, this seems all right. We have left, there has to be a parenthesis here, and let me close this. As you can see, the result is very nicely coming as no, no, return, which means that the first two are not a return customer, only this one, which is Chris is a return customer. Now, why is Chris a return customer? Because Chris is purchased in October, November, December, but is not purchased in January, but is purchased in February. Finally, since we want to get a result of true and false to put inside the filter function, we can simply say, is this result equal to return? And it will give us list of trues and false. And we can apply filter B5, B12. Let's close the formula. As you can see, it tells us that Chris and Harold are return or recovered customers. For example, you notice Chris has purchased in October, November, December, not in January, has purchased again in February. If Chris had not purchased in February, he would not have been a return customer. Let us check for the others as well. Let us check for, let us say, let us find somebody who is not a loyal customer. Let us say Natalie. Now, as you can see, Natalie has purchased in October and has not purchased in the 4 months post that. If Natalie had purchased in February, she should have been a recovered customer. Let me just quickly see if there's something that we have missed out on. Just a moment. Okay, let us quickly debug the formula. So formulas and then evaluate formula. Let's go through the formula step by step. You can do this too on your system a little slowly to understand step by step how the calculations are working. I'm doing this a little fast just for my understanding. All right, let's see. So we have a 0232, 0242. That seems all right. That means that no. So we have a 0232. So we do have a Natalie coming in properly. But then why is the result not coming? Let's see. Let me see. I think this part with the left can be left out since we, all right, let's understand it this way. We're doing two things. The first thing we're doing is to find if there is a zero. Why are we finding a zero? Because that will tell us that there has been a month in November, December, or January where the customer has not purchased, right? And from the right, we want to look for a one, which means that the customer has purchased in the month of February. That means that both these conditions have to be met. As you can see, it gives us Seth, Chris, Natalie, Irene, and Harold. Let us see if it works now. So if Natalie had not purchased in February, she would not appear in the list of return customers. Let's look at it like this. All right. So let's say Lycoris is right now not appearing either as a loyal or as a return. If Lycoris was appearing in February, would have been loyal since it is coming in all the 5 months. But if Lycoris was not there in December, it would have shifted from loyal to a return customer. As you can see, it is working perfectly. As I said in the beginning, it might seem quite long, but then mostly for your analytical purposes, you're not really looking at loyalty over a very long period. You might be looking at the last 3 years or maybe the last 3 months, and you can always copy paste this line multiple times. And with a little bit of addition, we can find both the loyal as well as the list of return and recovered customers. Especially in the case of campaign management, when we are running a campaign to retarget and bring clients and customers back on board, it's very important to see if the month where we did the retargeting campaign and we spent a lot of money, did we manage to bring back any of the customers that we had lost in the past?